Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. Welcome to another Coffee and Careers with Cassandra. Gotta love an alliteration, right? So today I have my friend Germain Louie here. He is going to talk all about how he got to his career and what he does. I could say careers. We're going to talk about that. So let me bring him on. Oh, and the other link still had volume on. Okay, cool. Let me bring him on. Hi, Germain. Thank you for joining. How's it going?
Hey, Cassandra.
So
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Let me turn my volume up here. All my stuff is not set correctly today. Okay. So for everyone tuning in, first off, thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. I hope you have your coffee. I've talked to Germain. We both have ours. Let us know in the comments, first off, where you're coming from. And in the comments, please feel free to leave any questions for Germain as they pop up. On the back half of this, I'll be checking there and asking him questions from you. So first off, Germain, could you introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, so I recently graduated from UC Irvine back in March and grew up in Bay Area, South Bay actually in Milpitas. And since then, I moved over to Irvine where I did my 4-year degree. And then following that, I'm now a business development representative over at NetSuite.
Nice.
And I do see I'm also on my phone as well, seeing the live stream there. So hi, Brian.
Brian's rocking that feed right now. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for the support. We appreciate it. And thanks to Val, too. Oh, Val's in Nebraska. Val, I've wondered, Val's very active on my platform. I've wondered where you're from. Good to know, Nebraska. So question that I love to start with is, what was your first job?
Yeah, so very fitting. I know that we talked about kind of first careers in the past before. So for me, my first paid job was actually working as a barista at Starbucks. So very fitting with this whole theme of coffee and careers. And, even since my days at Starbucks, I was there for around 2.5 years. And every day I still see, little traits where I'm like, oh, wait, this actually still applies to what I'm doing every day now. I'm sure, I think on your last stream, you were also talking about how, everyone needs to be having that first time experience working in customer service in some capacity. And I completely agree with that. And, that's kind of how I started.
Yeah, I always like to tell people, you will always deal with customers. Just as we get older or fancier jobs, we call them clients, but they're still customers. Like, it's the same thing. You're doing this.
That is very true.
Can you give like one example of something from one of those jobs that you use? It could be simple.
So specifically with my time at Starbucks, I mean, even if I were to like dumb it down to the most basic thing, like making coffee, I mean, I still do that at the office on a day to day. But even when you talk about, at Starbucks, oh, my customers or clients, now that translates over to my role at NetSuite. I'm doing a lot of different outreach to different businesses. And now I consider those clients rather than customers, just because even when you start thinking about like a sales cycle, and to me, like they're never really, your customer. I kind of feel like they're always going to be my client from the minute that I first engage with them all the way to when they do become that customer, because you're continuing to nurture those relationships. And I would say the same thing does apply when we go out to networking events. Those are your clients, those are people who enjoy seeing, and there's so much in that relationship that you're always trying to uncover, similar to what we're doing on a day-to-day basis when you're hosting these LinkedIn lives, for example, or you're working with your students on a day-to-day basis as well.
Right. I would love to know a little bit more about your current role. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do? Because we've talked about this before. Like, I had no clue what biz dev did until a year ago. And then I went, oh, I think I probably like that job too. But share with us more about it. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think so I know we talked about this briefly. But for me, even going into business development, I wasn't exactly sure what it was. kind of break it
You're freezing.
really off it's a business.
Shoot, Germain, you're freezing. Y'all, let me try and chat really quick. We're chatting. Sorry. Isn't it funny, you guys, to watch people chat? It's back now. Yes, you're back. But we didn't hear anything of what you said about what you do in your job. So let's start
No
again.
worries. These are the technical difficulties that we roll with.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so a business development representative, some organizations also call it a sales development representative. And at the very front line, you're essentially going to be the first point of contact that a client engages with. So for me, on my day-to-day, I'm reaching out to different businesses and trying to understand their business structure and different ways for how our solution could help benefit them. And in this capacity, it's operational efficiency there. So it's really nurturing those relationships, being able to understand their complex business structure, as well as what pain points that they're going through, and being able to qualify them to say like, hey, I think this would be a good fit for our solution. And from there, we would set meetings with our senior counterparts. And from there, they would go in a little bit deeper, understanding their business, which solutions might make the most sense. And if it does all align, then it's, let's advance to that next step of the sales cycle and see, is this a perfect or ideal solution that would help your business at this time?
Nice. Now with that, because I think a lot of people hear sales as like, you're just coming in and telling someone this is what our product is. How much of what you do is just like relationship building, just getting to know people?
Yeah, so it's funny because taking that step back and even understanding, what did I even want to do with my career? I was never like, oh, I want to go into sales, or oh, I'd want to go into recruiting. And I think a lot of people have the misconception of, especially from ethnic backgrounds, it's, oh, I need to become a doctor or a lawyer to make X amount of money. But I think one thing that I did see, even on my LinkedIn news feed, for example, was the amount of money that you can make as a sales rep or as a recruiter can sometimes or even surpass what those tenured degrees do require. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but it's not for everyone.
Right. No, but you can make the money and not have the 6 figures of professional degree loans.
Right. Yeah. So there's definitely that component to it. But for me, like on the relationship side, I tend to always put relationships first. I'm not a person where I'm like, oh, I need to sell you this because that's how I get paid out. But it's, is this something that would actually be beneficial for you as well as for us? Because at the end of the day, it's not worth having a conversation if it's not something that would even benefit either party on either side. And more so on the relationship side, when you start thinking about LinkedIn, for me, I start thinking about social selling or social educating. And that's really being able to share like, hey, this is what our solution does based off of my research that I've done on your company, as well as just all the other companies that I've talked to in similar spaces. I think it would be very beneficial to have that initial conversation to understand a little bit more into your business as well as our solution, and seeing if there is that alignment. If there is, great. If not, oh well. But at the end of the day, on the relationship side, something that I found very beneficial is oftentimes a lot of the companies that I'll look into, I do have those mutual connections. And then I was just like, wait, how do you know this person? And then it comes that whole game of trying to find that shared interest there. And I remember even during like the first few months working there, I had a mutual that was connected to a really close family friend of mine. And I reached out to my family friend, was like, hey, who is this person? How do you know them? And she was like, oh, that guy married my best friend from elementary school, and I was in his wedding. And I was just like, no way.
Yeah. That's the weird thing that happens. I had similar when I was in grad school. I was trying to look for jobs, and I found like it was a weird position that was like university career experience, but in a tech company. And
Hmm.
so I found the girl who had held the position, and it said we had one person in common, right? And this is a tech company, and I'm working in career, and I had worked at Riot, so I thought, oh, it's probably somebody from there. No, it was my boss at the career center at my institution where I was at grad school. And I'm like, hey, how do you know her? They were both sorority reps like 10 years earlier. I was like, I can't make that up. Like, you can't know, like
Right.
you just find out that there are all these little connections all over, which I think is why both of us absolutely love LinkedIn.
Right.
So with that, I know some of your like journey on LinkedIn, but I don't know all of it. I just know you were a person who leveraged it really well in college. And so I
Hmm.
would love for you to talk about that. But before we do, I know we have new people on the stream. I just want to remind you, if you have questions for Germain, questions about LinkedIn, about biz dev, any of those sorts of things, please leave those in the chat or in the comments, and I will keep scrolling the feed. That's why I look over here. I'm just checking on you all. I'll keep scrolling the feed. But can you first tell me, like, what got you on LinkedIn? Why did that become your platform?
Yeah. So for me, I think a lot of the times, and this is the same stigma that I hear with a lot of students, is, oh, LinkedIn is a professional platform and it should only be used that way. And I know that we both have our own take on that. But for me, like the reason why I started using LinkedIn through, not even throughout entire college, but it was really during my junior year, so my third year of college. Um, for me, it was, oh, I need to have an internship. If I don't have an internship by the time I graduate, I'm screwed. And I think a lot of students think the same way, just because, you look at job descriptions as an entry level candidate, it's, oh, you need 1 to 2 years of experience. And you're just like, how do I get that experience if I can't even get that internship first off? So for me, it was, okay, cool. Let me use LinkedIn. Let me figure out, what are the different career paths that I'm even interested in. And it became that game of, let's start building relationships with different people in different industries with different roles. So for me, it was, reaching out as, hey, I'm a student at X university and I'm interested, trying to figure out, what exactly I want to do. And then it would be coming across different titles, different companies of interest, and starting to network in that way. But for me, I didn't really start using LinkedIn until I actually started to study abroad out in London. This was January through June of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, 2018 sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like junior year. But yeah, so during my time in London, that's when I actually joined different organizations, one of them being Alpha Kappa Psi, which is a worldwide business professional fraternity. And during that time, it was going to different networking events in London. And I started to write about my experience there, as well as using that as a platform to connect with the different people that I met during Insight Days. And that's even how I ended up getting my role to where I am today. And I don't think a lot of people actually know about that. And even internally, like at NetSuite, we all kind of share that story of, oh, how did you hear about this position? How did you get here? And typically most people are like, oh, I went to my university's career fair or X, Y, and Z. But for me, it was, oh, I attended Oracle's business conference on my 21st birthday in London, and now I'm here.
I remember you posted that once on LinkedIn, right? When you got the job, you said something about it. But yeah,
Yeah,
but I love that it was your 21st birthday and you were like, hey, it's a bigger priority than taking this day away? Getting a career. Like, let's do the thing to get a job.
right. And I think, a lot of the times when students are also studying abroad, that's probably not their top priority. They're just like, oh, let me enjoy it. Let
Totally.
me go travel around. And at a certain point, it was kind of like, oh, God, study abroad program is about to end. I'm about to start my senior year. Don't even have an internship. And I think even during that time, it was, look, I'm just trying to get an internship just so that I can get that experience, not even looking for that full-time role yet. And then things within my timeline just started to speed up so much faster.
So what tips do you have to people for you said like you started off by just like reaching out to people on the platform. How did you do that? What are your tips on that?
Yeah, so kind of, at the very early stages, I think a lot of people are scared or a little hesitant to do that initial outreach. And for me, it was, going through LinkedIn search filters and figuring out who are people that are local to where I was. And at this time, this was Orange County. So I started to look through, things that were a little bit of a warmer introduction. So people who I had mutual connections to. And I would kind of like read through their profile and see, hey, is this someone that I want to connect with? And also, is this a potential career path that I'd be interested in? And from there, it would be sending out that personal connection and just introducing myself very briefly, as well as mentioning, again, one, I'm a student at this university, two, know that we're both connected to insert person here, and three, that call to action of, hey, I'd love to be able to get coffee with you, or even just set up a time to learn a little bit more about your career. And even I think it's important to also know when you're setting up those meetings, I don't think it should ever be the, oh, here's my resume, I need a job, please help. I think that's I saw your eyes just light up there, but I think that's
you're not going to that to be like, and here it is. Like, no.
Right.
Finding out information.
Right. So I think it's, just really being able to understand what they actually do. And a lot of the times after that initial conversation, from my interactions, a lot of them were like, wait, do you have a resume with you? Like, let me help you. So I think there's always that push and pull effort there. And even taking it a step back to when I was in London at that time, one of the, I guess, mentors now that I built a relationship with was a sales rep at, not Oracle, at Salesforce at the time. And we had an insight day, talked to him then, and then later on I reached out and connected with him on LinkedIn and was like, hey, I'm actually a study abroad student, really interested in kind of what the culture is at.
Oh, we're freezing again. Hopefully he'll be back. Ooh.
Your role and get a better understanding there.
See. While we're waiting for Germain to come back, I just want to say hi to Lucy. Thanks for joining. Hi, Lucy. He'll want to be back too. He's hopefully, ooh, that's not good. Hopefully he's coming back. Hi, are you there? There, you're back.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, these things happen. Everyone's used to it with these. Don't worry about it. So go back a little bit. You had said, we heard you up to the point where you said that you reached out to him after the Insight meeting and said you're a study abroad student.
Gotcha. Yeah, so after that, it was trying to set up a time so that I could go back and visit him and kind of get more advice in particular. So during that time, he had requested like, hey, if you have a resume, bring it with you and let's go over it. And he also helped me with my elevator pitch and all of that. And, this man, his name is Prince. He took 30 minutes out of his day, started doing all of this review with me, gave me advice on fixing my resume, doing the whole elevator pitch. But the one thing that I wasn't expecting him to do was he started giving me an office tour and introducing me to different recruiters. And to me, that was a huge shock, especially because, it was not my intention of, oh, I'm trying to get recruited right now. And also, oh, I'm an international student to their standards. So like likelihood of me even, getting my foot in the door probably wouldn't happen. But it was just that gesture of, let me introduce you to the recruiter. They can talk about the different programs as well as different opportunities that might be available later on. And I think this is the unconventional path that I see a lot more students starting to take, as well as just kind of the option that I do advise students, because applying for jobs on a job board is no longer the best approach. I think it's still something that you should do, but you shouldn't rely on it.
Yeah, it's funny that you call it the unconventional way, because I actually say this is the conventional way. It's just that it feels murky, so people don't want to do it. Right? Like hitting easy apply, or even taking the time to tailor the resume and then applying online. It feels productive because you can make a direct line. Like, I applied for 5 jobs today. Whereas saying, I reached out to 10 people for coffee and I have 2 coffees lined up and I hope that leads to something. Like, you just,
Right.
it's so much harder, I think, for students and for everyone, not just students, but for people to grasp that that is actually much more productive, because it just feels like, but I don't know where this is leading. Right? But what you said, I love everything you said, is examples I give to students and clients all the time. So thank you for backing up what I say. Like, it's always great. Always offer to meet at somebody for coffee near them. But a lot of times they will say, like, oh, just come to my office. And it's a very rare occasion for someone to be like, come to my office, walk to my office, and I'm going to leave you now. Like, normally there is, let me show you our space. If it's a creative office, let me show you our space. Let me introduce you to some people. You get their cards. You tell them it was nice to meet you later. Like those things that feel like, what exactly is this doing? Is doing everything.
Right. And I guess the question for you, like, how did you get your first job? Because I think was it with Riot or Wheel of Fortune before going over to Fullerton?
Yeah, it was Wheel of Fortune. Then I did a job at Riot. So I, interestingly, have had jobs. I've gotten jobs like all 3 ways. I have gotten jobs through staffing agencies. This job I did get through applying online, but it was just, or like the Cal State Fullerton job I got through applying online. But I think it's that I was a very oddly specific fit. They wanted someone with career experience, a higher ed degree, and had worked in television. Those things don't come together often. So that was kind of a special fit. But my first job at Wheel of Fortune was all through networking. I networked my butt off at my internship. I met every person. Luckily, it was a new TV show, On Air with Ryan Seacrest, not the radio show, TV show, YouTube it. And so everybody there had come from somewhere else. So I knew everyone I met had plenty of other contacts in the industry. And I just built relationships with every single one of those people, and asked them, like, if you know anyone, that they were sending resumes for me. So, like, I had the publicist there. He had sent my resume. All he told me was, I sent your resume to my friend at Sony. And I was in the car with my dad coming back from lunch. We went to get sushi. And I had just finished saying at lunch, if I don't hear from them or anybody, I'd applied for things. If I don't hear from anyone by Friday, I'm going to re-up at Disneyland. I had worked there the year before. And I'm like, I got to get, like, I'll go do hourly for a while I find it. And literally we were on the way home and I got a call saying, hi, we're calling from Wheel of Fortune. And I was like,
Am I contestant?
I don't know. How did Wheel of Fortune get my number? And I went home and, like, it was a while ago. It took a while to get on the internet to find out, oh, Sony owns Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. And so, yeah, that started it. But it was just through asking people questions and learning about their jobs. And then I always say, like you said, like, don't, like, hand them your resume, but hopefully when you have these coffees, similar to what we're doing now, it becomes a conversation, right? It's not just one-sided. So there's going to be time for you to talk about yourself and plant a seed. Like, oh yeah, well, this is my major and, my next step is getting an internship. So I'm just in the middle of searching for those right now. Of course, they're going to be like, oh, send me your resume. If I hear of anything, I'll keep you in mind, I
think that's the big thing as you're building relationships, it's just planting the seed of, there could be future opportunities down the lines. And I think that's the same thing, even within my role at NetSuite. It's, hey, if it's not a good fit, it's not a no forever, it's a no for now.
Mhm.
And I think that's the same thing when you're applying to all of these different job opportunities. A lot of the times, I think, really good recruiters, they'll tell you, it's a no for right now, but I'll keep you in my pipeline should something else come up later on. And even now, I believe you met him also at a past networking event, TJ Kenyon.
Mhm. TJ
Yeah,
and I
so
had coffee. Yeah.
yeah, so he reached out to me not too long ago and was like, "Hey, I have this opportunity open. Do you know anyone that would, just graduated that would be a good fit for this?" And then it was me going through some contacts that I had and then referring different people over to him. And give it a few weeks, the person I referred over ended up getting the job. And it was just like a win-win on both sides. And I was just like, that's the power of just being able to plant the seed and building those relationships on both ends, because you understand, what they're looking for, what this person's interests are, and if it's a good alignment, there's different opportunities that kind of come together in that magical way.
Definitely. I think something too, I'm going to use you as an example for this, and I don't think you'll take offense at it. I think people need to realize you have to take everyone seriously. Don't write anyone off. So I can see some people being like, oh, well, this person's a student. What can they offer me? Or, oh, well, that person's only an assistant. They have no one in common. And like, they're not going to be able to do anything for me. And when we met, um, I know, like, we had a conversation just like I would with anyone else. I don't think I treated you like, oh, little student. And I remember you said something of, oh, yeah, I'm trying to do more speaking. And you were like, oh, you guys got a conference coming up, right? And I think it's worth it to just let everyone know what you're interested in, no matter what level they are, no matter where they're at. Because I think there are some people who might have been like, oh, I'm not going to tell this person what I really care about because how are they going to help me? It's like, well, we don't know who they know or what opportunities they're in charge of, right? And so that's something I think is just so important for everyone. I see a lot of students do that reverse too. They don't network with other
Mhm.
students. They only network, they only want to talk to the president. And it's like, oh, you guys, talk to the assistant,
Right.
talk to the other intern, talk to other students because they all have places too.
Yeah, I think that's super important because, especially with like internship programs, I think every intern in that situation, they get exposed to different maybe VPs or executives or people, who are managing them directly. And sometimes those people are just super resourceful. And it's like, hey, this intern could introduce me to their manager. And that's just, the whole start of
Yep.
relationships there. And something that you said that stuck to me was like, one, you never know who knows who in that capacity. But even when, thinking about sales and recruiters, I think a lot of the times people start to shut them out once they get that initial cold call. But I think something that is super powerful is for people to realize that both professionals in sales and recruiting, they talk to so many people every day and they know so many different people in a variety of different industries. So sometimes just being able to say like, hey, this is what I need. I might not need your services, but this is exactly kind of like what we're struggling through. And it might be that realization of that sales rep or that recruiter that's like, wait, I actually know of this company or the specific person that knows how to solve that problem. Would you be open to that introduction? And it's, even if it's not benefiting you immediately, I think just being able to have that credibility of, hey, Cassandra is this person who knows all these different people, reliable resource there if I ever need anything. And maybe it's later on where it's, hey, I need some career coaching as I'm getting to transition. Then
Mhm.
it's, oh, I know someone, let me go to Cassandra because she was super helpful when I had this other problem. So she's the go-to person.
Yeah, totally. No, I think it's huge to build those relationships and maintain those relationships. I want to come
Mhm.
back to something. Um, so you utilized LinkedIn a lot. You were one of the people who started LinkedIn Local Orange County with Lucy, who, by the way, is watching. I think it was when you were freezing that Lucy came on. So say hi to Lucy. She's here. And Doug is here. I want to say hi to him, and Arjun and George. Hello. Madeline, I'm going to get to your question in a little bit. But I really admire the fact that you took LinkedIn seriously and networking seriously and took yourself seriously. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I know so many students who kind of go, ooh, but I'm just a student. Like, oh, who's going to talk to me? And I'm curious, you have any, which I personally think like leverage the fact that you're a student, because that's when everybody wants to talk to you because they're like, oh,
Right.
give you advice, right? But can you talk to me a little bit of like, were you intimidated to talk to people? How did you get over that? If you were, how did you take yourself seriously in that way? Does that make sense? It's kind of an ambiguous question.
Yeah. I think for me, it was, I'm not initially intimidated, but of course there's those nerves when you're like, oh, wait, I actually got a time to talk to them.
Right, they said
Now
that.
you're kind of like, okay, now I need. Right. I think that happens a lot of the times. It's just, okay, now that you have that, prepare for it, start doing your research and start thinking about, how much their time is valued at and just making sure that you're maximizing both ends of the spectrum there. In regards to, just being able to start leveraging LinkedIn as a student, especially right there on, what you said, leverage the fact that you're a student. I've definitely done some colder outreach now that I'm not a student, trying to, get meetings and just trying to learn specifically about them. And I think part of it that makes it a little bit also being in sales, they might think, oh, this dude's just trying to sell me something right now. But half the time it's actually I'm interested in what you're trying to do or what you do, because I'd like to incorporate that into some other projects that I might be involved with. So that's kind of one facade of that component. But going back to when that whole thing started, I know that I was kind of going through my LinkedIn feed again, saw these different pop-up events happening everywhere, started doing research into, is there something that exists in Orange County? And part of the reason for that, for me, this was when I was still a student going into my senior year. It was, I don't have any internships yet. Let me get involved with some sort of side project that can at least showcase my talents in that capacity. And timing and everything, it worked out well. Lucy, as you mentioned, I don't know if she's still on there. If she is, hi.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when that started, it was, okay, let me reach out and at least see what that process is right now and seeing if I'd be able to help. And I think one of the most powerful things as a business is building out those relationships with universities, community colleges, state colleges, whatever it is, because there's so many resources at the higher education level where, these professors, even faculty, they've been in that industry for X amount of years. They have all these different contacts, relationships there, and it's always mutually beneficial, especially if businesses are trying to do a lot of research and development. You always lean back to think tanks, and that's, the realm of higher education. But also there's a lot of talent within universities, and sometimes these aren't going to be your students that are 18 to 22, let's say. Sometimes these are students that are well over 25, maybe they're 40, 50, trying to go through a career change. So you really never know, what that audience is until you tap into it and just broaden your horizon in that sense there.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
I'm curious, like, you said you don't get intimidated, so maybe that's just the difference. But I just know a lot of students get scared. I think, let me put it this way. How did you get over the fear of rejection? Because this is what I think a lot of people have is, oh, I don't want to write because I don't want to say it wrong. And then what if they don't answer me and they think I'm rude and they hate me and all these things? Like, did you ever have fears of rejection or it not going well? Things like that.
Yeah, I think at this point, or at that point when I started to do more of the outreach on LinkedIn, it was, I've already got rejected so many times from job applications where it was, sending stuff out or going through on-site interviews and then just getting that email that says, unfortunately,
you're like,
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, like that definitely took a toll on me where I was like, oh, I'm not good enough. Imposter syndrome hit. And it was kind of like, I don't know exactly what to do. at this point. And at that stage, it was okay, let me just do the outreach, see what happens. Like I said, the worst that'll happen is either a no response or no, I don't have time. But maybe that could lead to, I think, on the other side, that person might say, I think you'd have a better chance talking to so and so instead. Let me put you in touch with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at the end of the day, you never really know what would happen until you shoot your shot for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what I try and tell other people to do, regardless, how old you are, whether you're just graduating from college or if you're later in your career, especially when, maybe you're moving into an unfamiliar state, city, and just reaching out to people, because I think more often than not, inherently people are trying to help you in some capacity. And it's never their intention of, oh, let me just shut you out completely. And sometimes, I think that also built out a lot of resilience, and that made my job a lot easier today, being in
Of course.
that early stages of sales. And also, like, tying that back into Starbucks customer service related, there were so many situations where people would be, unhappy with their order, and it's just a matter of remaking it, or, working morning shifts where people are grumpy without their morning coffee. So it was always just a matter of learning how to deal with those different personalities and just being able to fully understand what they're saying, reciprocate that back to them. And then more often than not, it's, how do you fix those relationships when something bad does happen? And even early on, I remember I was networking with an individual, and I ended up making a mistake on my end about sharing different parts of their story online without their permission. And that was a big red flag when this happened, like at the very early stages when I first started doing it. And it was that, okay, cool, this is a learning opportunity now for me, so I don't make that mistake again later. And it's okay, let me always make sure to ask for permission around, sharing any information online in that public setting. So, even for me, it's never been that smooth sailing, oh, I know how to network and never made any mistakes. Mistakes are going to be made, and I think that's just inevitable. So it's a matter of, how are you going to proactively handle that situation and not be reactive towards that and just being like, oh, never doing that again. Worst decision ever.
No, I think
so I think at the end of the day, yeah.
No, I thank you for sharing that, because I think that's a huge thing. I try and talk about that all the time now, of like, oh, you're gonna screw up. Like, you're gonna have a conversation that's awkward. You're gonna say something wrong. It happens, but yeah, don't let it stop you. You learn from it, you move on. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, I know Madeline had a question, which also, Madeline, you're here every week, which I love. And then I always wonder, is it Madeline or Madeline? So like DM me and let me know so I pronounce your name right. But she asked, what is the most important feature of LinkedIn to leverage? Is it recommendations, or is it making regular posts? What do you think it is?
I'm not sure if Madeline is still in here. I think it really depends on what your objective is and kind of what stage you're at. In terms of being able to network and do outreach, I think, personalized notes are going to be the best feature, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in a capacity where you're client facing, then I think that's going to be a revamp into, what's on your profile so that you can build out that credible persona on your profile. So that's when recommendations start becoming more important. I see Maddie. Okay, do you see Maddie that's on here still? Maddie, is there, I guess, a question for you? Is there something specific that you were looking to get out of utilizing any of LinkedIn's features? And as she does that, I can still continue to talk about some of the other ones. But of course, like on the sales and recruiting side, having Sales Navigator or their talent solution becomes really helpful for doing your particular job. For people that are networking or hosting events, now there's LinkedIn events, people building out their personal brand. There's so many platforms within LinkedIn now to publish content, whether it's LinkedIn Live, LinkedIn Video, LinkedIn articles, or even just commenting and engaging with other people's posts. So I think at the end of the day, LinkedIn as a whole, it's a very powerful platform. it boils down to, what are you trying to get out of it? And for seasoned professionals, even, there's different things that you can get out of it. One thing that I trying to reprioritize my time is going back to learning, because I'm not in school anymore, but I consider myself a lifelong learner. And for me, it was, okay, let me go back into LinkedIn Learning and take the time to remember some different skills or practice new skills, learn about new skills that are out on the market, and try to incorporate that into my day to day. So there's so many different avenues where you could really take advantage of the resources that are available online, whether it's LinkedIn or any other platform there.
Do you think, with recommendations, how many this is just personal opinion, but how many do you think you need? I think you only need like 3.
I think 3 is probably a solid number there to have. I think the big thing is having them from different people who have met you and worked with you in different capacities. Just so, for example, Cassandra, like, it wouldn't make sense to just have 3 recommendations all from your peers at Fullerton.
Right.
Maybe it's having, someone from Wheel of Fortune, someone from Fullerton, and, a student or client of yours that you've helped. Because I know that we talk about, a lot of the times we have a lot of different interests or careers beyond just what your full-time one is, but being able to diversify that and have people speak to different things that you've done, why they enjoyed working with you, I think that becomes really helpful as you're building out your different personas that merge into that one brand being you.
Yes. Which, thank you. It made my profile is going good then, because they're not all from the same place. So Maddie hasn't written back yet. While we're waiting, you touched on something else that I did want us to talk about. Do you see yourself with just the one job right now? Or if somebody said, so what do you do? What would you maybe say?
I don't see myself having a job. We talked about this a little bit before. And even all throughout college, I was always doing multiple different things all at once. And for me right now, I've narrowed it down towards 2 specific things, one being my full-time job, and then the other being a contract project that I'm working on right now with the Orange County Community Colleges. So I think part of that other discussion was, as a student, you have so much capacity to start taking on all these different projects. And then once you start working full-time, you become restricted in certain areas where you're like, wait, I don't have as much free time. I need to reshift my priorities. And that's kind of what happened in my situation, where it was, let me narrow down on 2 to 3 things that I can fully dedicate my time to. So now that's been my full-time job at NetSuite, as well as my contract project going on with the community colleges. And, for me, it was taking that step back away from attending as many networking events that I wanted to, hosting different events, and then just getting involved with different things that still fulfilled that capacity. So for me, like, I love being able to go to networking events, talk to different people. That's not to say that I can't be doing that anymore, but just being more strategic about it. So that kind of turned into, okay, cool, let me network internally at NetSuite, because it's such a large company as well. So it's, getting involved with different employee resource groups, networking and meeting people, not just, peer to peer at the same level of a business development representative, but upper management, people on different teams and functionalities, and learning more about what they do as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. If you haven't read Essentialism yet, you need to read Essentialism, because you'll be like, oh, yeah, this is what I need. This is what I'm learning I have to do. So Maddie did write back. She said she'd love to get out of LinkedIn, how to have future employees and colleagues, employers and colleagues see all the work she's been doing, and build her network and meet more people who share similar interests and goals. So for that part, I would say posting, right? Like, I think people need to post, be active.
Right. I think one, being active on the platform. And she mentioned, being able to have future employees and colleagues see the work that you've been doing, Maddie. I think the best thing to do is taking advantage of the square footage on your profile and having rich media that enhance each job description or volunteer opportunity there. So whether it's videos or pictures of your work, things that are related to what is within your portfolio. And, maybe it's setting up a website, or I think people use Linktree now to showcase all their different sites if they don't have one main platform. I think that's a great way to incorporate that into your summary. And for the second part, in terms of building out your network, meeting more people with similar interests, I think the one, super helpful thing, not just on LinkedIn, but using other event platforms, Eventbrite, meetups, there's so many groups that are out there, and even Facebook events. There's so many different things that are within your local area where you can meet people of similar interests who, one, are willing to network because they're attending these events. So I'm not sure where you're located, but even within like Orange County, there's so many different event groups beyond just LinkedIn Local. I know there's like OC Tech Happy Hour, Creative Mornings.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a handful of book clubs and all these other things there.
And Creative Mornings is in a lot of cities. What's interesting, what I tell people is like, find one and follow them on Instagram and LinkedIn. And once you found that one, you'll start getting stuff for all the others. Like somebody from that one will tag one of the other groups, will tag somebody else. And all of a sudden you're like, I thought we had nothing in Orange County, and it turns out there's 18 groups, it really changes it.
Yeah.
So for your city, whatever it is in your city, like, she's in Seattle. Oh, Maddie, there's so many things in Seattle. Like, find the one and start with one that you really like. I suggest like find a group, some sort of like ongoing meeting that you really like that one. And then ask those people, that's a great conversation starter, is ask them like, do you go to any other things like this? And then they'll tell you others.
Yeah. And Maddie, feel free to DM me, because I actually made a trip out to Seattle as a solo trip, and that turned into an entire networking trip of this person was here that I knew, and then I went to all these other events in Seattle, and it was just crazy to start taking those online relationships from LinkedIn to as I'm traveling. And now when I travel, I'm always looking through my connections on LinkedIn and just seeing if there is anyone that I do know, or people who are like, oh, you should actually meet with this person while you're there. So even if I'm traveling alone, it never really feels like I'm fully alone.
Totally. No, I've thought about doing similar on some upcoming trips. Oh, she said she's the meetup queen. That's awesome. I think that's the thing.
There you go.
That goes to something that I think is really important, is LinkedIn can be used both ways. Like, networking goes both ways. I love LinkedIn as a way to start knowing somebody and then take it off the platform. But I also love that it's such an easy way to build a relationship once you've met someone at an event. Like, I think a lot of people go to events and get business cards and then go, I don't know what to do with these. Right? Like, so how often do I email these people? What do I say to them? But if you're connected on LinkedIn, now you're going to see what they're posting, and you're going to have natural interactions, because it's like you bumped into each other in a room again. It was just online.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's
following, and I think just following them on LinkedIn, you're able to see latest things that they're doing. And I know that you posted a recent video about attending networking events and not staying in tune with just one person the entire time, but giving them that reason for you to continue to reach back out, reconnect with them at a later point, because there is that similar interest there, and diving deeper into those conversations.
Yeah. Don't have the whole conversation at the event. Like, wanting something else to talk about. With that in mind, I'm going to do like a quick last call on questions, because I know we're getting close to time. Do you have any like last pieces of advice? Like, let me give it to you this way. Is there one thing you would encourage job seekers? We won't just say college students, because I have plenty of other people here, but like job seekers to start doing?
I think I'll separate this, or I'll tackle this in two different points.
I made it this far without Teddy growling, and now he just woke up from a slumber to yell at somebody. Sorry, he's off camera. Sorry. Okay. I'll
No worries.
be leaning like this, petting him. Go ahead, Germain. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think taking it in two different approaches for whether it's college students or people who are already employed is taking advantage of your network at work and being able to meet with them. Because I think a lot of the times, even for me, like I'll reach out to people internally through LinkedIn or through other communication platforms to take the time and learn about what they're doing as well as just kind of their own interests. But on the side part is also using LinkedIn as a platform to continue to connect with different people and follow what they're doing because you never know where that alignment will be of, hey, you're doing this really cool project, or I could connect you with this person. So
Mhm.
just really being able to leverage those relationships and build it out. And that's not to say that you have to constantly be talking to them every single day or every week, but even if it's, something more of like once a month or once every 3 months, whatever it might be, whenever that timing is right for the both of you.
Yes. No, I love that. I love that you've talked about networking at your job because that's the thing I think people forget about too. It doesn't mean that you have to let everyone at work know, like, hey, I'm looking, or like, hey, I want to do something other than this one day. It's just, hey, I want to get to know other people within my company. But just like meeting those outside the company, those people inside can connect you to
Hmm.
too. And I think that's great. So with that, it doesn't look like we have any last questions. Thanks so much, Germain, for joining me today. We'll sign off here, but people connect with, if you're watching still, connect with Germain. He's a great person to know. I've tagged him. He's first comment. I'll tag him again when this goes to just comments, not chat. But thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. It's going to be on a Tuesday morning. Changing it up. Next one's on a Tuesday.
Switching it up.
Get ready for the announcement. I got to go with other people's schedules sometimes. So thank you for joining me on a Saturday. Thank you all.
Thank you for having me.
In the next one. Thank you, Germain. Bye.